So we're going to talk a little bit today about inadvertent IMC. Harry asked me to address you folks, give you a little bit of an idea from our standpoint as far as how we look at inadvertent IMC accidents and some of the procedures that we go through. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of different couple aspects of this accident as an example. Now you have to understand that we have a very close relationship with the Alaska State Troopers out there. We travel with them all the time. Unfortunately, both of the folks that were killed in this accident were friends of ours. So what we ended up doing is we ended up recusing our office. It started with me the day that we knew of the accident, and it actually went all the way up to our chairman, Debbie Hersman, at the time. So we were able to recuse ourselves. So a lot of the information that was gathered and was presented at the board meeting just a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C. was brand new to me, and it was also brand new to our investigators as well. So to give you a quick overview here, this accident happened on March 30th. This was actually, I don't know if there's a term, but it's actually Easter Eve. It's the day before Easter Sunday, so it was a Saturday. It involved their AS-350B3, we refer to it as it's now an Airbus. They've changed the name, manufactured, but I still refer to it as a Eurocopter. Operated by the Department of Public Safety, and it was a search and rescue flight. Happened about 5 miles east of Talkeetna, and unfortunately it resulted in 3 fatalities. There were dark night conditions and some pretty stinky weather at the time. The METARs, or the weather reports that we had in Talkeetna, weren't that bad. However, in the area of the accident, quite a ways away from where the weather reporting facility was, we have some pretty heavy snow showers, very wet, and again, very dark night conditions. To give you a little bit of an idea as far as how this whole thing transpired, late in the evening, the pilot received a call from the dispatcher, trooper dispatcher, that they had a snow machiner that was stranded. They were concerned that he wasn't going to make it through the night, so they launched. Pilot flew by himself from Anchorage here, headed up to Talkeetna, up to an area that's predetermined, referred to it as Sunshine. It's an area that they use for a landing site. Picked up an extra trooper at that time, and then headed to the site. Ended up finding the snow machiner right under the intertide. There was a small lake that they actually were able to land on. Obviously, it was frozen at that time of the year, so they were able to shut down, hike down to to where the snow machiner was. Took them about an hour and a half to actually get them out of the snow machiner, back up to the machine, and then they were headed back to Sunshine, where an ambulance was going to be waiting for them. That's where this case took a little bit of an interesting turn. And as we mention a lot of times in a lot of accidents that we review in Alaska here, is there's a need for image recorders. And this one was different. And basically this little piece of equipment is called an Apereo 1000. And basically it's a self-contained vehicle recorder that gives us a couple of different things. Probably more importantly, it gives us a screenshot of the actual instrument panel. So we can look at torque, temperatures, NG speeds, whatever the case is. We have an actual screenshot of what was going on inside that cockpit at the time. Probably more importantly, it's like a small flight data recorder for the most part. It gives us pitch, roll, GPS location. So in essence, it's like I say, it's a small flight data recorder, not as many channels as a normal 121 aircraft would have as far as a flight data recorder, but it gives us a tremendous amount of information, and that was the case here. The interesting point about this accident and this piece of equipment in the State Trooper helicopter Hilo 1 was this was the first fatal accident that the Apereo 1000 had captured. So there was a fair amount of interest, not only from outside of the state of Alaska, but obviously in the state of Alaska, and it gave us a real better idea as far as what took place, took all the guesswork out of our investigation. Basically how that Apereo works is it's in the A-Star, it's hung up on the ceiling right up above the pilot's left shoulder for the most part. And that is actually the unit that came out of Hilo 1 that they were actually able to find at the accident site. It was whisked off to our vehicle recorder lab, downloaded, and it worked perfectly. So long story short, the lake that you can see on the left side is, and all this information was downloaded from the Apereo. You can see where the helicopter landed on the lake. That's where they shut down for an hour, hour and a half or so. And you can see where the intertie is. You can see where the snowmobiler's location was. Took them a while to get down there, and then they ultimately came back to the helicopter, and then ultimately left, headed back initially along the intertie, and then you can see where the accident site takes place a little bit down to the south of the departure point. Departure point's right there. This is a little bit closer view of the accident flight, the last 3 minutes of the flight. And you can see this area right here, the airspeed goes down to, or the ground speed at this point, goes down to pretty much zero. And at that point, the helicopter starts a left climbing turn. And at this point right here, unfortunately, the pilot cages the attitude indicator. The machine is already in a nose-high left turn, and for whatever reason, he cages the attitude indicator, which at this point right now, as you well know, pretty much threw away any reference that the pilot had, and then the things go really bad from there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run an animation here for you in just a moment. Again, all of this information came from the Apereo. It's very, very similar to the information that we glean out of a flight data recorder. We normally don't have this kind of information, but it is just amazing.
The animation does not depict the lighting or weather conditions at the time of the accident, which were night instrument meteorological conditions. In addition, the wooded terrain is not accurately depicted. At this time, the airspeed begins to decrease. The helicopter continues to slow until it almost stops. Weather data indicates that the helicopter likely encountered near zero visibility conditions due to snow showers. The helicopter begins a rapid vertical climb and left turn. The left turn continues past 180 degrees. The helicopter enters uncoordinated maneuvers, yawing left, rolling right, and pitching up. With the helicopter at high pitch and roll angles, the pilot caged the attitude indicator, resetting it to indicate a level flight attitude. The helicopter entered a series of erratic turns, climbs, and descents. The recorded images and data and shortly before ground.
An EMS pilot that flew for EMS operator down in the Texas area, they came forward and basically told us that he had a very, very similar situation happen flying an A-Star during an EMS rescue mission or during a transport. And basically what he was able to tell us is he ended up getting himself into a situation similar to this, and Unbeknownst to him and why he did it, he did the exact same thing, caged the attitude indicator. And basically, his thought was his inner ear, his butt in the seat, it wasn't registering what he was seeing on the attitude indicator. And the best way to do that is fix it. You're relying on your senses as opposed to relying on what you see on the attitude indicator. And the best way to rectify that is cage that attitude indicator. Luckily for him, just as soon as he did that, about 2 seconds after that, he popped out of the fog bank that he was in, and he was able to right the machine. But basically, the attitude indicator was not at all what the machine was actually in, the attitude the machine was in. So interesting. Again, from the human factors side, that's something that our human factors folks are still looking at. Again, if we would not have had the apparel on board, we wouldn't know any of this. So there's a tremendous amount of information that we were able to gain